Okay, so I usually plan my videos around 6 months before I upload them and before I film them. The interesting thing today is that, I've got this big Notion database where I basically list all of my video topics and all of my dates, all of my sponsors, so I know exactly what to do when the time comes. The problem is, when I sat down to film this video today, I did not notice that the video topic was supposed to be my conclusions on an experiment that I actually did not do. So today we're going to do the opposite thing. We're going to do the reverse experiment. So today I'm going to give you context on what I want to do. I'm going to tell you exactly how I plan to achieve this. And then in the future, I will report back and tell you whether I was successful or not. So, as you've probably seen from the title of this video, I am quite ashamed of my screen time recently. I honestly think that back in around 2022, 2023, I was actually at a really good stage in terms of screen time. I was cutting back on my phone usage and I was in a very healthy mindset when it came to, using anything digital. However, when I started querying my book in 2024, I became very obsessed with my inbox, with my social media, because I was always trying to see whether I was posting frequently, whether I was pitching the book correctly, whether there were any query replies or full requests. And though this all happened in 2024, I still feel like I am suffering the consequences of all of those bad habits. And now I'm in a really good place with publishing, and I cannot say anything else beyond this very vague statement, but it's all good news, I promise. But I thought that since I'm in this very good place in publishing, I think this is a really good time for me to start cutting back on those really bad screen time habits that I've developed over the years and go back to a more peaceful and almost isolated lifestyle, if that makes sense. And to be honest, I think I'm also getting pretty tired of technology in general. I think I'm becoming this very cranky old person who hates any new technology, especially AI, and I've mentioned this so many times. But honestly, all the bad news about the world, it just makes me feel like I want to flee somewhere, like have a little cottage in a forest and just block everything that's happening outside. Anyway, here are a few things that I have already started to do recently, and there are still a few things that I want to do in the future to really improve my screen time. I would say until the end of 2025. So these are all things I want to implement this year still. So one thing I already started doing, and this is actually not because I'm trying to challenge myself about anything, it's more because pure eye strain. I have a lot of eye issues. It's something that I usually do not discuss here on this channel or actually anywhere else, and I'm not going to go into details, but basically I do suffer from a lot of eye strain issues and problems. And I've noticed that as the years go by, it gets very difficult for me to stare at the screen for long periods of time, which is actually terrible news when you are a writer, because that's exactly what you do. But when it comes to my full-time job, I do a lot of writing, I do a lot of reviewing, and I do a lot of reading. So one thing that I'm trying to do right now is whenever I'm able to, print a document and annotate a document, with a pen, like handwritten notes, and really study the legal issue at hand on paper, take notes on a notebook, take meeting notes on a notebook, anything that I can do on paper that is not a completely environmental disaster, like printing a 400 pages document. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about shorter documents. Anything I can do on paper and avoid that eye strain, I'm currently trying to do. Honestly, it made such a huge impact on my levels of fatigue, but also in the way that I pay attention to things. When I'm taking my notes on paper on a notebook, I feel like I'm so focused on trying to make sure that I comprehend everything that's being said, and I summarize all the key points in my own words, in my own writing. It's making such a huge difference actually in terms of information retention. Another thing that I have been doing in this one is creatively speaking, and it's very much tied to that first point, is anything that I want to brainstorm for a creative project, I'm now doing it on paper. Before, I had a lot of really complex world building databases and character sheets on a Notion database as well as Scrivener. And though I adore those, and I do think that they are such powerful tools if you are a fiction writer, I have been preferring lately to do all of this on paper. It takes a longer time, but it makes me feel much more in the zone, like in the creative zone. Not only because I have zero distractions, but also because I'm able to take my notebook wherever I want. I can really put on some headphones, listen to some music. The whole sensitive thing of touching paper and smelling the paper and smelling the ink, I love that, and I'm really trying to embrace that more often. It's something that I always did when I was younger, then I stopped doing it to really embrace the hustle thing
in your 20s when you really have to be productive and be the best and blah.
Now that that's out of the way, thank God, I can go back to my earlier roots and really just enjoy, when há uma palavra específica que eu quero dizer, Maria. E eu não me estou a lembrar do que quero dizer. Mas basicamente o que eu quero dizer é sensorial, eu quero a experiência sensorial de escrever no papel e não me estou a conseguir lembrar dessa experiência sensorial. O que eu te vou pedir é que tu incluas esta parte em português no vídeo e que tentes colocar legendas para as pessoas perceberem que o que eu quero dizer é que tenho saudades da experiência sensorial de escrever no papel. Okay, so anyway, here are two other things I really want to do in the upcoming months to ensure that I drastically reduce screen time. So first of all, I really want to purchase a brick. Not any brick. There's this little device called Brick, and supposedly what it does is it locks all of your social media apps in your phone, but instead of just, working as a sort of cold turkey app, it forces you to leave the physical device somewhere, and then you have to move to that place and tap your phone to the brick to unlock those apps again. So that means that if I'm in my home office and if I have my brick in my kitchen, I have to move to the kitchen, tap my phone on the brick and unlock those apps. I think that if I leave for work and I leave my brick device at home and I go to the office, I probably can't unlock my social media apps until I get home. So, I'm just already brainstorming all the really fun experiments that this may lead to. I really want to try it out. It kind of sounds slightly gimmicky in my opinion. I also think the concept is really great. So I really want to try it out and I'll tell you how it goes. Another thing I want to do, and this is more for family planning in general, and not only my own personal planning, but I really want to get one of those gigantic reusable sort of whiteboard wall calendars for my kitchen where me and my husband can basically plan all our life, like having a yearly calendar and plan everything and have everything on a wall. We share Google calendars, we share task managers, we talk a lot about what's coming next, but I feel like we are so busy all the time. There's so many small details, not only family events, but for instance, I will be traveling a lot in the upcoming 6 months. And he also has classes now, and we have meetings and we have conferences. And then we have to manage who is going to pick up our kid from school. So there's a lot of different things to manage, and I think we do it pretty well, to be honest. But if I had one place where I could see everything that's going to happen, and not rely as much on the digital calendar, on the digital to-do list. I think that would actually be great. So when it comes to books, I think this is a really good topic as well. And I want to leave it to the end of this discussion because when it comes to books, I think I'm in a pretty good state. I read mostly, if not exclusively, physical books. I read mostly hardbacks because I have nothing against paperbacks, by the way. This is something that people ask me a lot. Do you have anything against paperbacks? I don't. The issue is there's a lot of paperbacks behind me that are currently losing their color of the letters and the color of the spine. They're losing their color because my shelves are facing a big window. This does not happen to my hardbacks. It just happens to paperbacks. So usually when I purchase a book, I will purchase a hardback to ensure that I'm not going to ruin the book. Otherwise, I also have a Kindle. I actually have two Kindles because one of them is actually my husband's and I tend to borrow it quite a lot. But I have one Kindle Scribe that I use to edit my own manuscripts and to read my own manuscript. So it's definitely a tool for work. It's too heavy for me to actually feel comfortable reading a book just for entertainment. And I will use my regular Kindle a lot to do specifically better reading. Now, sometimes what happens is because I live in Portugal, there are lots of books, especially debuts, that I cannot purchase and ship to Portugal in time. So for instance, they are released and they only ship here like in 1 or 2 months. And because I'm very impatient, what I will do is I will purchase the book and I'll read on Kindle. But those are exceptions, and I'm not really thinking about cutting back on those exceptions because they really happen not really often. You know, when it comes to reading in general, I'm feeling very comfortable with where I am right now. I also don't read any sort of magazines, only sporadic newsletters and newspaper articles, and I will still do that on my phone or on my computer. Another thing that I'm currently doing, and this has proven actually very, very useful when it comes to my 9 to 5, I am now compiling in a binder the cover pages of any sort of documents that I produce for work. And this has been very, very useful because usually what happens is I have so many different projects I'm working on and I usually organize them in folders in Outlook. But when I have a meeting and I'm going through all of my projects and I'm going through all the things that I've done this year, sometimes these meetings happen in person, for instance, and they're actually supposed to be pretty quick. So it's been so helpful to have like a binder in front of me and just go through the binder to revisit all of those projects and say what went well, what didn't go so well. When I finish the year and I look at the binder, I'm like, wow, I did a lot of work this year. And I'm actually doing the same for publishing. Now, the specific thing about publishing is that sort of journey that it's like constant slaps in the face. So what I'm doing with my publishing binder is I'm only compiling good news. It's my good news binder. So it has things like when I got my offer of representation email. I printed the email and it's there. I have the contract with my agency. A lot of things about the vague thing that I cannot mention. I have messages from people who've read my books saying they love my books, and I have those on my binder as well. So anytime I'm feeling pretty low about publishing, I'll just open the binder, scroll through the good news, and I'll feel better about myself. Remember when we talked about swapping the mind scrolling with something that provides value? 10 minutes turn into an hour and suddenly you're wondering where your evening went. That's why I've been trying to swap some of that time with something that actually feels good, and that's where LingQ comes in. LingQ is this super flexible language learning app that basically turns the content that you already enjoy, like articles, podcasts, YouTube videos, into interactive lessons. Instead of just passively scrolling, I can read or listen to something in my target language, tap on words I don't know, and it instantly saves them for practice later. They have so many different languages to choose from, and the great part is it doesn't feel like school because you're actually engaging with content you care about, which makes it way easier to stick with. For me, it's been the perfect way to make my downtime a little more intentional without feeling like I'm forcing myself to study German. They also have an incredibly interesting feature that you're seeing right on the screen called the LingQ Importer extension. It allows you to automatically import web pages, articles, and video captions from sites like YouTube and Netflix into LingQ. All you have to do is installing the extension on your browser, go to the video page like Netflix or YouTube, click the extension icon and push import. And after a few seconds, the extension says import done. Then all you have to do is click view lesson and you're done. So if you want to turn some of that endless scroll time into something that actually builds a new skill, check out LingQ. I'll drop a link in the description so you can get 40% off and start learning a new language today.